What's going on, guys? We are back to it. I want to get through this game. It's been fun. It's nothing like Rebirth, but it is something. And I played a little bit yesterday. Kind of skipped over some stuff, so got a few things to listen to.
All right, what's up, everybody? Welcome to a brand new episode of Part of the Problem. I am Dave Smith. Very excited for today's episode. Okay, a couple of quick things. Let me get them out of the way, and then we'll get right into it. Number one, tomorrow I'm headed up to Buffalo, New York. I'll be there with Robbie the Fire Bernstein. Oh, no, I'm sorry, Friday and Saturday. No. Thursday and Friday in Buffalo, and then Saturday night in St. Catharines. Two shows up there. The first one is already sold out. The second one is going to sell out. If you want to come, grab tickets now, comicdavesmith.com. And then the other, you get all the ticket links for my calendar for the rest of the year there. And the other thing is, of course, remember, I am returning to the Soho Forum.
But if you guys don't know who Scott Horton is, he is the guy who wrote the book Provoked. It has to do with the Ukraine war, and basically his take on it is Russia was essentially provoked into retaliation. So that's not all of it, obviously. There's a lot of details to this, but it's a pretty popular book. I guess it's top 40 in history on Amazon. I thought about picking it up myself and checking it out. So if you guys need something to read, there you go.
In May, debating Alex Norwesh.
Interesting dude.
I still don't know how to say his last name. From the Cato Institute, we'll be debating immigration. Tickets for that are moving quickly, so if you're in the New York City area and you want to come out, go to thesohoforum.org to get tickets there. And also, if you're in the New York City area, go check out one of Gene Epstein's debate series there. Sohoforum.org is a great organization, great debate series. Gene Epstein is one of our best guys, and I always enjoy everything he does. Okay, got back on today's show, the legend, Scott Horton,
I tried to burn through a lot of
the Libertarian Institute, and of course missions. The author of this phenomenal book, Provoked, which is really the book you need to read to understand the build-up to the current catastrophe in Ukraine, and really a whole history of U.S.-Russia post-Soviet relations. And it's really a wild story, and it's I'm sure it's kind of been cool for you, Scott, that so you wrote this phenomenal book years ago called Fool's Errand, and it was about the war in Afghanistan. And then you wrote Enough Already, which was about all of the terror wars. But it did feel like those books, it was a recent history. I mean, okay, Afghanistan, I think, was still going on as you wrote the book, but it had totally been accepted that, like, yes, this war was a disaster. It was kind of, everyone had agreed, same with the terror wars, too. This thing is like, your book is coming out, you're still in the middle of your book tour. And it's become like the biggest issue that everybody's talking about. So that right away has got to be kind of interesting from your perspective.
Yeah, and I'm getting almost universally good feedback from it. I've had very little substantive criticism, a lot of Russian asset and Russian talking point type garbage.
Sorry, lost in thought.
But on a substantive basis, they seem to have not read the thing, because they'll accuse me of never addressing stuff that has a whole section of its own and whatever in there, I don't know. So, but look, it did get up to the top 300 on all of Amazon. It's now still in the top 1,000. It's, I believe, in the top.
I heard top 40.
Something.
Where did I hear that from?
600. No, I think 700 something.
I feel like
on Amazon. It's still number one in War and Peace, and still in the top 40 in all history on Amazon.
There we go.
So, and that's 3.5 months. And if it wasn't for Jimmy Carter dying and Dave Chappelle recommending his book Peace, Not Apartheid on Saturday Night Live, then I'd have been number one in War and Peace the whole time. But Jimmy Carter kind of, he's like my title for a minute there, but I got it back.
So people were reading that book. It's not a bad book for people to read. I've never read it, but I'm familiar with the thesis of
I know what trouble he got in for writing it, so it must be something.
Right, exactly.
I do not know where I'm going.
Okay, so let's jump right into this the latest, because this really is, and it's, you know, we've been living through such a crazy few years in this country. And as someone who does a show, I talk about this a lot, but when you do a show about the news, it's almost like there's something crazy every single day to talk about, and there's always like a new thing. And it's sometimes it's a challenge to kind of like zoom out and see things from, you know, like a transcendent position and like 10,000 feet above looking down. This meeting with Zelensky and Trump in the Oval Office was one of those things where it's like, this was really truly remarkable. I've never seen anything quite like it in my life, and it's just. I want to get your thoughts on it, and then we could get into the kind of what's come after. But
Zelensky, he did it.
My first thought on it was just that this was. It's got to be like the greatest political strategic blunder I've ever seen, and I don't. I've read a lot about this conflict. I don't necessarily have like a good understanding of who Zelensky is, but I don't know, like, what your thoughts on that? Like, who was in his ear? Why did he think this would be a good move? And when you're in a position where you're totally dependent on Donald Trump, the idea that you would come in and try to like out alpha him on live television and in a language that you don't really speak, and to think that was going to go well for you. I mean, like, what were you thinking when you first saw it?
Well, I mean, yeah, I was a bit just in disbelief. In fact, the second time I watched it, I finally found the clip of the whole deal, the 40-minute long discussion leading up to it and everything. And, you know, I was impressed the first time, but the second time I watched, I was like, wow, I really had not remembered just how bad it was. Him attempting to shout down Trump and talk over Trump in that way.
You have to watch it a couple times, and you have to watch the entire thing to actually understand what's going on.
Right? One is
because if you just watch that 5-minute clip, then it just looks like Trump and Vance are ganging up on him.
Now, which I think is the less likely explanation, or that this was, you know, a planned political move that he made, because essentially what was happening was Trump was saying, "We're going to call this ceasefire." That's what we're going to do. We want a deal where the fighting stops, implying, of course, then that everyone accepts that the lines are where they're drawn now.
Right.
And potentially, maybe in negotiations, they would even grow. Right? Because as it stands now,
so you can
Russia still doesn't control 100% of Donetsk, nor of.
I'm getting a little bit better at this.
Or Kherson, although
taking
they do control
a minute, but
virtually all of them.
I'm getting there.
And some of our key. But so this is Zelensky, I think, had already decided that Trump was throwing him overboard and wasn't going to keep supporting him in war anyway. And
still too loud, I feel like.
That, I don't know what the deal, the minerals is hardly worth anything. And we can talk a little bit more about that, but that's basically a red herring for the most part. But so I think his decision was that instead of cut and running from the war, he just wanted to cut and run from the United States and say fine. Because, of course, if America stops backing him, we can't really make a deal with Russia to end the war if Ukraine's not willing to end the war. And we can call off all support, and then they will be, you know, in a much tougher situation. But it won't just be like the Taliban walking right into Kabul or anything like that. The Russians will still have a fight on their hands, at least for a time. And so Zelensky apparently was betting then that he could just turn to the Europeans and essentially bet on their center-left, you know, last status quo position, you know, the common, call it whatever you want, the woke standard of the Biden administration. And that they will, you know, distance themselves from Trump, who is, you know, oh, he's the rogue and the right-wing nationalist. And so they are left, they're calling, you know, Keir Starmer, is that how you pronounce it? They're calling him the leader of the free world now. because Donald Trump is the isolationist turning his back on Europe and all this, which is, vast hyperbole on both counts. But you do have, it's kind of funny to see, right? The British, the French, and the Germans are talking about, well, and I think the Poles as well, we're not going to sell you out. We're going to continue to back you no matter what, Ukraine. And with the British Prime Minister even promising with boots and planes, he said. And I would be worried about that, except that I just don't believe him. I think the Europeans have already all admitted that without the United States to guarantee their guarantees, they have nothing to offer, really. The British can't fight a war on the continent, and I don't think the Germans really are coming and willing to risk that level of war over eastern Ukraine, and without support from the United States and knowing that they don't have it. So, I agree with you that it was ultimately a strategic blunder. I think it was deliberate, but I think it was a huge mistake because just like the former chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, Admiral Mike Mullen, and the then current chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, Mark Milley, had said back in September or October of 2002, I guess even still in September, they said, this is as good as it's going to get for you. Quit now while you're only this far behind. It's time to come to the table and negotiate. And, we already knew what happened, but there's a profile of Antony Blinken, the outgoing Secretary of State here, in the New York Times, where they call him Secretary of War. And they talk about how, of course, it was he and the State Department weenies that won over Biden and won the argument in the government that, no, we need to extend the war. And remember then, they were going to launch the winter offensive, which became the spring offensive, which finally, when they launched it, was the summer offensive and got nowhere and just got a whole bunch of people killed for nothing. And this was the big gamble that Blinken had made to continue the war, when the four stars were saying it's all downhill from here. So you got a good, and they did, by the way. The occasion at the time, Dave, was that on a weekend of September 11th, the Ukrainians had done this great feint and had made major gains in Kharkiv province Oblast, and also down in Kherson, where they had essentially forced the Russians back to the southern and eastern side of the river there. And so that was, to their credit, but then that was all they were going to get. And all the actual reasonable pundits on this knew it at the time, too. Everybody wise who you would turn to for any opinion on this kind of thing at all that you could find all said the same thing, which was, even Mark Milley is saying quit now, which that should have been all you need to know.
Yeah, really. I mean, it's wild to think about, and I guess this is just, I don't know, I guess I'm old enough now that I've lived through like 9 wars or whatever it's been, and it is amazing how they just all follow this pattern where it's like, okay, first of all, everybody hyperventilates about this imagined worst case scenario. There never really seems to be an onus on you to demonstrate that it's a likelihood or anything like that, but
working for Hollander now? What is it you're after?
World domination.
That's not even funny, man.
How about revenge?
For what? And deal!
Oh, he's got the white wing.
I've become a monster. A monster's objective is usually world domination or revenge.
You're wrong. Those aren't the wings of a monster.
Well then, what are they?
Angel's wings.
I see. Then what should an angel fight for, Zach? What do angels dream of?
Angel.
Angels dream of one thing.
Please, tell me.
to be human.
So a punch to the gut. Natural solution.
Defend yourself!
Why? What's the point? Are you trying to fight? Well, that was fun. Sure, why not? To be human.
Tell me what happened.
Oh, Angel just lost his fucking mind.
I want to help out a friend, but I don't know how I can do it.
Hello?
Just give him a Red Bull.
Mom?
Hello? Hooray!
Oh yeah, I forgot Ares was in this. Or Aerith, excuse me.
Not quite.
Dare
It's a
you
trick.
say this? Call her by her right name. Christina!
An angel?
No, I'm Aerith. You fell from the sky.
More cafefe.
Scared me.
So you saved me, huh?
Not really. Hello? That's all I did.
So he wakes up in the flowers just like Cloud. Or maybe not in the flowers like Cloud did.
Thank you so much, Aerith. I'm Zach. I have to repay you somehow.
Don't worry about it.
No. Aha. Hey, how about one date?
What is that? Don't be silly. Stop. Don't step on the flowers.
Just like Cloud.
Excuse me?
Is everything stolen?
Normally,
Memory?
people are more careful with flowers.
Or did it actually happen? I
Well-
don't know.
I guess I'm not normal.
This game is confusing.
Oh. You don't see a lot of flowers in Midgar. They're like luxury items around here.
They only grow here. Although, I planted some outside my house too.
If I were you, I'd sell them. Midgar is full of flowers. Your wallet's full of money.
Midgar full of flowers. Wallet full of money? Never thought of it that way.
Yeah, healing wave. That's gonna be nice. Once I actually start like racking up health.
The exit? That door. Going already?
I got shit to do today. Unless there's
Then
like chests and
look at the
stuff here. Hold
flowers.
on. I don't want to look at the flowers. I'm just wondering if you got like treasure. Yep, called it. Ethers too. 2 of them. That's not a bad find. Oh, all right. I guess that's the door. Nice place you got here.
Are you always here?
Yeah. So, where are you going?
Don't know.
I'll take you.
got to be like a Wendy's or something around here.
Dunno.
You just want to spend more time with me.
Yeah.
Huh?
I feel like Zach is more annoying than Cloud.
We're under the plate, right? Sector 5. The slums.
Or am I thinking, is it
Main
Titus?
Street's over that way. There's
Ooh.
lots of people. And
That's
you can go
comparable.
above.
Ah. Well, I should be good once I make it there. All right? Lead the way.
Titus is pretty damn annoying.
Okay.
I don't know.
Let's go.
I don't know if Zach's that bad. It's almost an insult. Back
You
to
know,
it.
whatever. Saddam Hussein's about to give the weapons he doesn't have off to the terrorists that he's not friends with, and then Kansas gets nuked. And, you know, with this war, it's been constantly, you know, Vladimir Putin's going to reconstitute the Soviet Union. He's going to move on Poland. He's going to do all these things. Then there's just lie after lie after lie. You know, in this war, there was, I mean, the ghosts of Kiev, and, you know, Vladimir Putin blew up the Nord Stream pipeline, and just all these things that serious people in suits and ties say into cameras. They're just all completely wrong.
Yeah,
And
time
then,
is
like-
on Ukraine's side. That was
Right,
the big
yes.
one, right?
Ukraine is winning. Ukraine is winning was constantly being said, and throughout the whole thing. Nancy Pelosi and Joe Biden and Blinken all in this
Hold
said
on a
that
sec, I gotta figure out this
even
YouTube thing.
Crimea has to be retaken by the Ukrainians, as if that was like
I don't know why it says I'm
even a
offline.
kind of achievable goal. And then, as the dust starts to settle, you start to look back at the thing. You know, I don't know. I've seen different estimates of the numbers of dead, but it seems to be a consensus that it's in the high hundreds of thousands at this point, at least. Well, I guess we'll find out more over the years. And then you look back and you think about how Stoltenberg, I always butcher that name, but the head of NATO said himself that in late 21,
He
Vladimir
said,
Putin actually sent a draft to NATO to just be like, listen,
does
here's
that
the deal.
work?
I will not invade if you just put in writing that you won't bring Ukraine into NATO. And to think about that like how much better that deal would have been for Zelensky
not really sure.
than what he's like. NATO's already off the table. They're not getting in NATO anyway. And to think that literally they could have kept everything except Crimea, or they weren't getting Crimea back at that point, but whatever. They would have lost Crimea, kept the integrity of the rest of Ukraine, just agreed to not join NATO, and all these people, I mean, the country wouldn't have had to be destroyed. All these conscripted troops on both sides wouldn't have had to die. It's just, it really is like maddening when you look at it in totality. All right, guys, let's take a moment and thank our sponsor for today's show, which is Tax Network USA. If you owe back taxes or your tax returns are
Not
still
sure about that.
unfiled, maybe you missed the deadline to file for an extension, the IRS may be ramping up enforcement. You could face wage garnishment, frozen bank accounts, even property seizures if you haven't taken action yet. But there's still hope. Tax Network USA has helped the taxpayer save over $1 billion in tax debt and has filed over 10,000 tax returns. They specialize in helping people like you reduce their tax burdens, and they can help you too. Don't wait any longer. Visit them today at tnusa.com/Smith, or you can give them a call at 1-800-958-1000 for a free consultation. Their experts will walk you through a few simple questions to see how much you can save.
I should
Act
set
now
up
before the
hotkeys.
IRS takes
I'm gonna
more
do that
aggressive
next
steps.
time I stream.
Take control today.
Or at
Visit
least one of the next few times.
tnusa.com/Smith or call them at 1-800-958-1000. All right, let's get back into the show.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's
Well, and
quite a few here you can do.
I mean, the medium-term future here, at minimum, just completely sucks for everybody as well, because, you know, no matter
be
exactly
able to
how the war
pause
finally comes to an
YouTube.
end, Russia's not losing that territory. They have essentially, you know, absorbed
I'll figure that out later.
the most pro-Russian population of Ukraine into Russia just by expanding the line around them. But what that means is they've moved them out of Ukraine. And so now nobody in Ukraine is pro-Russian anymore, or,
Right.
you know, the ones who who, are even sympathetic at all are going to be far more marginal in Russian politics now, which is going to be even more heavily dominated by the, nationalists from far out west who absolutely hate Russia. And I don't know if they're going to be allowed. I don't think they ever will be allowed to join NATO, but they may still join the EU, and they still will be, antimatter force stuck right there sharing a border with matter in the form of Russia from now on.
There we go.
And so I expect there to continue to be problems, kind of ongoing even after the Civil War or the major war comes to an end, and including what could be a Nazi-based insurgency. Led by the likes of Andrei Beletsky and Dmitry Yarash and these others who, it is, after all, a massive country, and the Russians still only control like the eastern and southern fifth of it, right? I mean, it's the size of Texas, which there's a reason the size of Texas is a cliche. It's because it's huge. It's Afghanistan. So now a lot of it is barren steppe and not very conducive to insurgency, but they do have some forests and some swampland and some other places where they could be based out of. And so I'm sure there are those who would want to continue to fight over the long term. I don't know whether the national, central state would be able to stop them or not. I don't know that this is what Zelensky is thinking, but he has reason to fear that these guys would kill him if he makes peace. They've said that they would over and over again. Even before the war, when he first took power in 2019, they threatened to kill him over all the guys who died in the war so far. So you want to talk about, the sunk cost fallacy. After all that they have sacrificed, he's going to sell them out now. Like, he has reason to flee home to the Brookings Institution after that, man, or they could have his ass. So that may be part of his calculation here. Is there are some in Ukraine, and it's, I think, far from the majority, but there are some who would rather never give in and keep fighting to the death no matter what. And so that may be part of his calculation, maybe not, but I think, well, I'd be very interested to see after, especially yesterday where he said the war is going to continue for a very long time, and then Trump denounced him for talking like that even. And all this, the break is getting solidified, and things can change quickly.
Something wrong?
There's so much at stake that people can say sorry and shake hands and do different things and maybe try to get back on the same page. But,
Lots of people
as we're recording this, essentially his
inside
stance
that
is we're going to
gate
keep
is a
fighting without
market.
you, and you can't
There's
make peace
so
without
many
us.
great shops
And
there.
so who holds the cards now?
Well, I guess we will see what happens. I mean, I gotta say, I was
Zelensky came back.
I
It's
was
like, "Oh, I'm
really
sorry.
blown
My bad."
away by the level of disrespect that Zelensky showed Trump and
It's
Vance.
kinda stuffy
And
here.
I was talking about this today on the was recording with Tom earlier
I know
today,
why.
and I think I mentioned this on the
There's
last
no sky
podcast as well.
here.
But there is look, I'm not
We don't
a conservative.
sky.
I'm
You're
a
gonna
right
just play all
wing
the
liberal
time.
like Murray
You've only
Rothbard or
just
something
seen
like that, but
sky,
I'm not like
bro.
a conservative. There are
Sorry,
things
I'm
that
not normal.
do you remember, like I remember Pat Buchanan, who I have tremendous respect
How's
for,
that?
but I remember, do you remember there was something where Obama, I think
The
he took a
sky
picture
frightens
in the
me,
Oval Office
like it's
with like his
sucking me
suit
in.
jacket off, and he just had like a shirt and tie,
Weird.
and I remember Pat
Right.
Buchanan being furious about this. It was like, it's disrespectful to the Oval Office or something like that. Like I'm not that. I don't really
think
care. I'm
so?
not a suit and tie guy. I never wear a suit and tie.
I know.
Almost never.
One day,
But I
I'll
gotta
show you a
say,
pretty sky.
it was very strange to me that he comes dressed like that. Like you don't put on a suit
It
and
won't be
tie and
scary.
Trump cares about that. That's the type of thing Trump really cares about, like looking
It's
TV ready or whatever.
I didn't
But
think much of
was,
it at first, but
I was
yeah.
blown away that he referred to the vice president as JD.
Yeah.
Like that to me was like, when Rogan floated out the idea of having the podcast with me and Trump and Joe Rogan, which I probably won't happen, but would.
Bailey had a good point, basically, because I didn't think much of it, but she's like, you were more dressed up for your interview the other day than Zelensky was for the Oval Office. And I was like, okay, when you put it into that perspective, that's a pretty good point, because I'm a broke MF. Like, I don't have much money. I just have I have a kind of a nice button-up shirt. I didn't even wear a tie, but like, yeah, that's the thing. I didn't even wear a tie. Like, but I wore like, I don't know, just some nice like beige pants and some dress shoes. And I was more dressed up than Zelensky was in the Oval Office. It's like that. When you put it into that perspective, it's like, all right, dude, have a little bit of respect for like the professionalism of the office. But yeah, all that professionalism went out the window once. And the thing is like if they're arguing that much on camera in front of everybody, imagine how much they're arguing in the background. Because apparently Biden was popping off on Zelensky too. It's like because he keeps coming back in and he's demanding it without any sort of respect. So yeah, that's just kind of like it's one of those red flags of like the dude can't even dress up if he's gonna come beg you for like $100 billion. It's like, dude, come on, bro. Like, give us something. Like, have a little bit. You know, just give us something. But yeah, it's a lot of the country is just over it. We're getting sick of it. We've spent a lot of money on this war. It's been 3 years. It was supposed to be a few weeks to a few months tops, and it's just it's so extended, prolonged. We need to just end it. And Trump needs to end it soon before midterms come up, or otherwise that's just going to be a mess. I'm going to pause this real quick because I need another cup of coffee and I need to get something to eat. So instead of just disappearing for like 20 minutes, I'm just going to pause it and start the next stream. And I'll try to figure out this audio balance here, playing this game. All right, BRB.